Hello, everyone. A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. This is Jasleen Kaur, Lead Content Marketing from Tech Mahindra's BPS Marketing team. I welcome each one of you to this Tech Talk on Conversational AI, Transforming CX with Automation, with the experts from the CX and Automation fraternity. I really appreciate you all taking out time from your busy schedule to attend this session. It's indeed a pleasure to host this session with our Tech Mahindra BPS leaders, Nikhil Pereira, Global Head CX Practice in Vaibhav Dalal, who is the Head of Delivery for Automation and Conversational AI. They are being accompanied by Tejeswi Sreekantan, Vice President Global Partnerships from Yellow.ai, our alliance partner. We've lined up these great minds to talk about the importance of CX for building future-proof organizations via conversational AI. We'll finally wrap this up with a 15 minutes Q&A towards the end. Please use the chat box appearing on the system to ask questions, which will be answered post the discussion. This session will be moderated here on by Vaibhav. Over to you, Vaibhav.
I'm sure we all had some interaction with likes of Alexa, Siri, Google Assistant, and these are just some examples of conversational AI either in chatbot or the virtual assistant space. And picking on that, wanted to ask that why is conversational AI at the center of future of the customer experience?
So thanks for that inaugural question for better ways of putting it, right, Vaibhav?
Yeah.
As Jasleen greeted the attendees, right? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Nikhil Pereira, Global Head of Customer Experience at Tech Mahindra. Vaibhav, to answer your question, right? I think COVID has really amplified, for lack of better words, the need for conversation AI, right? I remember pre-COVID, when I spoke to clients, it is always good to have technology. As all of us have now realized, it is a must-have technology, right? Brands and organizations are placing great emphasis on conversation AI because the primary metric that conversation AI impacts is customer experience, right? And I'll talk a little bit more because it's a topic very close to my heart. Back in pre-COVID, CX was of focus. There were some brands that were doing CX better than the others. There are some brands like Amazon who did it and continue to do it exceptionally well, right? And I think the Amazon model, when I speak to clients, has become the benchmark, right? Digital first is the way of interacting with your brand. And a very, very important term being coined is meeting the customer on the channel of choice, right? How do you shift the dependency from agents, to an always-on channel, as Vaibhav mentioned, right? Your Google Assistants on Android phones or Alexa devices. And I think, with the push from the biggies like Amazon to bring these smart speakers or voice assistants into the home is of growing importance, right? And brands are now seeing how well they can capitalize on it. Conversation AI, as Vaibhav mentioned, right, is in multiple assets, as I like to call it, right? You have chatbots, you have conversational IVRs, you have social messaging, which is your likes of your WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and then your smart speakers, right? So brands are investing very, very heavily for a couple of reasons, right? One, it provides always on service for their customers. And we'll talk about how certain industries are reaping the benefits of that between Tejas and myself. But, apart from providing always on service, it reduces the dependency on humans, right? Because typical rule-based, transaction-based interactions can very, very easily be managed by conversation AI. I think back in the day, when we looked at customer service, the end point was you picking up the phone and speaking to a live agent. Or it then further moved on to, chatting with an agent. I think now, interacting with your friends on your channel of choice, example, WhatsApp, why not interact with your brand on that very same channel, right? Coming back to the point that I made, meeting your customer on the channel of choice. So that's one of the main reasons why, brands are looking to improve customer experience, reduce cost to serve, but also improve, net promoter scores and the likes, right? So Vaibhav, that's my response to your first question.
Good. So with COVID anyway, changing lives for many of us, and with conventional AI getting introduced on the CX front, what would be some of the winning use cases on conversational AI as far as retail space is concerned?
Hey, Weber, first of all, thanks. I mean, this is a great panel, right? So good to be alongside Nikhil and you, come with a lot of solid experience in the industry. So good to be here. And so I would like to welcome the audience. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're logged in from. So on your question, Weber, in terms of use cases, what we saw, right, just as a follow through on what Nikhil just mentioned, customers today, the buying habits have changed, right, and where they consume data or consume brand information is through mobile phones, and they want to be able to interact with their brands. All right. And with the introduction of smartphones, iOS, Android devices, people want immediate gratification. So if they have questions about their brands, they want to be asking their brands, and they expect their brands to respond immediately, right? Rather than depending on traditional channels of calling the contact center. So I'll give you a plain example, right? So we deployed a bot, a very high ticket item, and we introduced something called social selling on channels like WhatsApp, Facebook, Messenger, where it's bi-directional channels, right? So we, as an experiment, we ran this where each unit price of the product, this was a high-end product, about costing around $2,000 to $3,000 per SKU, right?
Yeah.
So what we found is even customers at that level, when they're buying a product, they want to know about the product before they buy. They want to know if the product is ethically sourced. What is the carbon footprint? Is this suitable for their usage? So these kind of things, today you just can't do it on your traditional app or on your website, right? Or you can't expect these customers to call into your contact center. So through the best use case I can think about is, say someone looking at your brand on a banner ad, and they want to know more about that product. They click on it, they can land on a conversational AI bot, which can operate like a virtual shopping assistant, right? Greet you like how you would go into a physical store, understand you as a person, and personalize your product offering. All right. And we've been able to do that very well for some of the big brands like Sephora, right? You see a huge footfall coming in. In fact, that was a good combination of being offline and online. Today, you just walk into Sephora, you need help regarding a particular product, but you can't expect a salesperson to be available in every aisle. So you can just scan your QR code. You can ask your question, what type of skin texture that you have, what is the occasion you're looking for, and it can recommend in that aisle what is the products available, right? So that's a level of combination we can do. It's like a AI plus human, right? AI can assist human be efficient multifolds, right? So that's what we've been able to do. So one, in retail product discovery, then help them through product purchase, post product purchase, having digital bills, digital invoices, and then also your rewards program. That's a huge I mean asset that you can create, right? Where you're kind of with each transaction, you're talking to your customers about what is the reward points that they've earned, how can they use these reward points in the next purchase, kind of empowering your users. And then on the same channel, imagine if you say you didn't like the product or you want to give a feedback about the product, you can just do it on the same channel, right? Could be WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, rather than just calling your contact center. So that is one. Last, before I pass it on to Nikhil, there is again in the back end as well, we can help a retail industry, that is helping the retail people working within the retail channel, right? It can be someone working on your point of sale systems. These point of sale systems need to be in a highly available environment. You can't afford a downtime. So bots can be your IT support agent as well there, right? So any issues you have, you can just in natural language query the bots. It can support you in the backend. Same bots can be implemented to support your multiple suppliers. Retail industry normally works with a huge set of suppliers. And if you see, vendor managers are spending 60% of their time just answering repetitive queries, right? It could be, when is the payment due? Or I'm unable to submit my invoices appropriately, or I don't have, I mean, my passwords have been locked. So all these kind of use cases can be automated using conversational AI today in the retail space.
Nikhil, you want to add to that?
No, I think retail is one of the most prime industries that's really leveraging and capitalizing on conversation AI, especially in the industry. A term that they use is Vismo, right? Or where is my order? Those are very low ticket items, high priority items, and I think conversational AI lends itself exceptionally well, to solve for some of that, right? Because you do not want live agents, just doing an information relay call, as I like to call it, right? So, there are multiple use cases. For example, Vismo, returns, refunds, 2 hours. There are a whole bunch of them in the retail. And I think it's a very, very, and continues to be a very potent industry, ready to tap on the benefits of conversation AI.
Yeah. So, but, while there are multiple use cases and low-hanging fruits, what would you consider as the key aspects to deliver a superlative or an amazing customer experience via conversational AI?
So great one, right? So Vaibhav, while we keep talking, and I know a lot of CX practitioners keep talking about, conversation AI and its benefits. It's a double-edged sword, right? I've seen some organizations burn their fingers pretty badly because it was a bot designed by a developer, and no offense to any developers, if any, on this call. But the most important bit, and I think we're working very, very well with our partners at Yellow.ai to bring this to life, right? Because a platform is one part, but a human-centric design, leveraging that platform and all its components to deliver two broad um, dimensions, if I may, when it comes to customer experience. One is, how do you eliminate customer friction? And two is, how do you reduce customer effort, right? If you're interacting with a bot and you are an authenticated user, the last thing that you want is the bot to ask you for your first name, last name, or your order number, right? And it's very, very important that when you start building bots, when you start your journey with conversation AI, right, you understand what exactly you want your bot to do, right? Or in other terms, identifying very, very, very clear-cut use cases, right? As you mentioned, for the retail industry, and the same goes for all other, right? So what you want your bot to do, and what's the persona that your bot needs to have, right? There are brands that we work with that want a very chatty or a friendly bot experience, and there are some that want to be scripted by the book, right? It's important that you keep those aspects in mind, and for lack of better words, create an avatar for your bot, right? By leveraging your brand assets, brand colors, so on and so forth, right? So that's your first starting point. A lot of bots fail because you have bots that say, how may I help you? And the customer has no clue, out of the 5 million things that they want help on, what that bot can actually do, right? So conversation design is a very, very integral part of a success of a bot, right? Identifying the use case, but what's the journey, right? Do you want to give the customer buttons, chips, carousel, drop downs? Those are various elements and aspects that we build when creating conversation AI, right? You also need to be very cognizant that when you're talking about voice user interfaces, you need to understand there's no options for buttons. or if you're talking about a conversational IVR, it's all voice, right? So those are some of the nuances. The other big misconception is you create the bot and that's going to be magic and everything is going to be rosy post your bot deployment. It's far from the truth, right? And all of us, Vaibhav, Tejas, myself, fully understand, right? There are three broad components to a successful conversation AI deployment. One is the NLU, right? How well your bot understands. And if I get a little bit technical, how do you create those intents, utterances? Many a times you start interacting with bots and the bot cannot understand what you're trying to say, right? So we build a very strong bank of utterances. Our partner has a fantastic platform that has a bot confidence score with intent matching, right? So that's the first part. The second bit is natural language processing. Again, a very loosely used term, but how well you interface with the right systems of record to fetch that information or post that information. And finally, natural language generation, or NLG, right, is how well you speak, right? You have various components to a conversational AI, right? For example, a smart speaker has the ability for intonation, it has the ability for speed, it has, text to speech and various other aspects, right? But all of that put together needs to be curated with the customer in mind. What are the journeys that you want to solve, and to be true and honest to your brand, right? So those are some of the aspects, Vaibhav. I think anyone who's embarking on their journey of conversation AI needs to be fully aware of, because as I like to call it, right, conversation AI is a shiny toy, but if you do not know how to harness the potential of that shiny toy, it could spell disaster, right? So with our partners at Yellow.ai, fantastic platform. But if the bot developer is not leveraging that platform to the maximum, it's a problem, right? The other bit, and I'll wrap up with this response, is when you're looking at bots, Yellow.ai's platform has the ability to port to multiple channels, right? And I think bot developers' nightmare is to have different platforms, right? One for chatbot, one for conversational IVR, one for a smart speaker. And then that's where your use cases tend to differ, your branding tends to differ. Yellow.ai platform has multiple channels, which I like to call as build one, deploy many, right? So once you have your use cases, your intents, your integrations, you can port it on your website for a chatbot, port it to a smart speaker for a voice user interface, or connect it to your IVR for a conversational IVR, right? So I think those are some very, very critical elements, Vaibhav, as we all practice day in, day out, to promote and ensure that conversation AI is a success for our clients.
Um, Thanks, Nikhil. Nicely covered. And as we are speaking about retail, I just want to understand that what about banking, financial services, insurance? How can we leverage conversational AI as a technology to transform their services?
So great question, Vaibhav, because we are seeing a lot of relevance, right? Today, if you see banking, the banks want to make their services more inclusive. When I say inclusive, you had people who are tech savvy adapted to mobile banking, right? Who knew how to use a mobile app. But there are quite a lot of users today don't use these apps simply because even though you've made it simple, we've gone far ahead making it simple UI, but there's a lot of population, say like a tier 2 city or smaller city, who still don't adapt to apps, right?
Yeah.
So what we've introduced is something called social banking. Again, when we say social banking, today my parents, they're about 75 to 80 years old, they know how to use WhatsApp, right? So why don't you make your banking available in these channels where users can use a natural language to interact with their banks for services, right? And be able to bank. So with this, in fact, some of the very large nationalized bank, we've today launched our solution. Again, like Nikhil was mentioning, it's multi-channel, right? So users who are keen to go onto the banking website, they can interact. The same experience is replicated on channels like WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, right? So doing this, again, I know banks will be worried about security. But today, say these channels, social channels, we work very closely with Meta. We ensure that the data stays within a region. Data is not going out of the region. And also, my advice to banks is there is a lot of use case where we can still solve without even integrating into the core banking system, right? Basic things like I want to change my address, or things like how do I order my checkbooks? How do I stop a check? I've lost my card. Those kind of activities which really don't need integration into banking system still go a long way, right? So those kind of use cases, and also imagine a new a customer is newly coming into, someone who's just opened up a bank, is getting a good salary. They've just started their banking life, and that they really don't know what to do with the card, right? How do we activate? There is loads of documents, but you don't go through those. So imagine having a virtual assistant guiding you through that process, right? Saying on day one, this is the pack you received. How do you activate your card? What is the, for KYC, what is the activities you need to do? How can you book an appointment? So imagine the seamless journey that a virtual assistant can take you through, right? And same within that channel, any issues you have, you're able to interact with the same channel. You don't have to go to a multi-channel. I mean, you don't have to again go to a branch, or you don't have to go to their website to do that. Within a single channel, you're able to resolve those. And post banking, and today, with this information, right, with bots, we are able to understand your persona, right? And that information is kind of empowering your database in the backend. So banks can provide you more tailored solutions, right? And based on your persona, can recommend what are the other services that they have available that you can take advantage of, right? Today, it's a fashion to invest in the stock market. A lot of banks have their trading accounts, they have their wealth management. Giving introduction into those early on in your banking lifestyle is fantastic, that we can do. So these are some of the use cases on a high level we can bring in.
Okay. And just, Nikhil, a follow-up question on what you were saying about various channels. Do you think voice AI is truly the next disruptor, considering that, you have Alexa, Siri, Google Assistant? So what's your view on that?
Absolutely, Vaibhav. As I say, especially in the US, UK, and it's picking up very, very rapidly across the globe, right? Smart speakers have pretty much become a mainstay, in most houses, right? And I'll give you a little long-winded answer because it's very important to understand that, right?
Yeah.
If you look at how customer experience has evolved over the years, right? Back in the day, and I'll use the travel example, right? If you ever needed to book a flight, you would go physically to a travel agent. It then moved on that they had a phone number. It then moved on, they had an email ID. It then moved on to the next big thing was the dot-com boom, where everyone had websites, right? And when everyone had websites, the next fad was having chat. The next fad was having chatbots, right? If you look at it, it still has a significant amount of customer effort to the two guiding principles that I mentioned at the beginning, right? Eliminating customer friction and reducing customer effort. Example, even in conversation AI, right? Chatbot is a very important channel, but you still need to open up your laptop or power on your computer, go to your brand's website and start interacting. Um, you know that's still effort. Everyone has Siri on their phone or Google Assistant, and stats show that about 98% of Gen Z and millennials prefer to use voice as a channel, right? So while we talk about smart speakers, uh, you know uh, cell phones are becoming very, very part of our life, right? I was reading a very fantastic article that said that an average user interacts with their phone about 150 times a day, right? It was quite startling, right? And I'm pretty sure each one of us has tried playing around with the assistant of our choice, right? So voice continues to be a very, very important bit, because when you look at these, right, you can you don't have to do anything. Just hold your phone and say, "Hey Siri," or just say the wake word, for Alexa, and boom, right? You're interacting with your brand. The other bit is, these channels have zero customer effort, right? I could be sitting in the middle of the night and invoke my Amazon Echo device to provide me support, as they just mentioned. Could be for my order status for a retail client, could be something like ordering a checkbook. Minimally intrusive, but it's very, very important, right? The other bit is voice biometric. That's a very, very big ticket item, while people want to authenticate, right? Authentication using username and passwords, a thing of the past. OTP, again, a bit cumbersome, but voice biometrics is another big one. So I'm a strong believer that voice will continue to be a very, very integral part. As we all know in the industry, 20 years that I've been in the contact center and customer experience space, voice will continue to exist. And you will still have a portion of your customers that will want to pick up the phone and speak to someone. And many a times you can do contact avoidance to a conversational IVR, as I mentioned. So the potency of voice continues to exist on the traditional phone channel, but also with new age technologies. You can use your voice now in pretty much most cars across the globe, interacting with, Alexa or Auto and the likes, right? So the potential is vast. And it's so natural, right? Because we as humans prefer to talk rather than chat, right? And if you can talk naturally to a bot, I think that's harnesses the potential of a very human tendency to have verbal conversations. So that's my little long-winded answer, Vaibhav, for your question, that voice will continue to
Yeah.
be a major disruptor.
Perfect, perfect. So, Tejas, I think next question is for you. You gave examples around retail and other areas. What about healthcare industry? I mean, how can conversational AI help the healthcare industry?
So, Vaibhav, today what we are seeing, this started off during the pandemic, the healthcare industry really started looking at it closely, right? Because one, there was shortage of healthcare. Employees available for support were really scarce. And this was an issue that has been going on in the healthcare industry for quite some time, right? But now it's become critical for them to really solve that challenge, right? So things like even just for US, patients not showing up for appointment is $1 billion loss for the industry, right? So imagine having a bot where you can talk about your symptoms. We already have this live in one of the region. You can say what your symptom is. It can recommend this is the department that you need to go into. It can also check who's the available doctor, he or she, what is their calendar like, and it can offer you a date and time, right? And and you can negotiate on the time as well. So once that is done, it can also send you a reminder automatically saying your appointment is on so and so day, right? And are you still available for the appointment, right? That, and then post that in terms of especially during that moment you're worried about your insurance coverage, because again your medical expenses in places like North America, Europe is quite high. So information around your insurance coverage and post treatment assistance. Those are some of the region where a virtual assistant can play a massive role, right? And we are already seeing that. So this can bring in operational efficiency because you're reducing stress on your front desk employees, right? And also reducing that anxiety for your patients. So a very strong use case across that. And again, in the back end, in the healthcare industry, because one, if you're looking at bringing efficiency into the business process, our IT support bots are, there are bots that we've applied for, implemented for a pharma company in Europe, where we also help their research analysts, right? Sorry, their scientists. So they have to refer to multiple documents before they can put out any results, right? So this was kind of, they had a separate department just to kind of refer to these 30,000-40,000 documents in the backend. Today, our bots are integrated into that solution. It can read through that information through document cognition and provide references at the paragraph level, right? So that has kind of reduced a 3-day activity to pretty much like a 30-minute activity, right? So 10x gain there in terms of efficiency you're bringing in. And especially with the pandemic, and we are seeing there's a lot more newer type of outbreaks. So organizations, especially healthcare industry, has to really pick up speed. So having a conversational AI is just going to complement the existing healthcare workers, right? It's just going to make their efficiency increase their efficiency multifolds. So it is important, and a lot of healthcare organizations are looking at it. We are working with some of the one of the largest charity services organization. We're working with a lot of hospitals, healthcare organizations already there, that space.
Okay. Nikhil, you had mentioned about chat, voice. So how would an omni-channel conversational AI impact the future for customer support?
Um, yeah, absolutely, right. Staying true to the concept of meeting the customer on the channel of choice, right? And fortunately, unfortunately, there are so many channels, right? You have channels that can make or break a brand, right? And I'll give you a live example, right? If you just talk about the food industry, right, or a restaurant industry, one of the most common channels, and I'm pretty sure all of us have seen, is Instagram, right? You go for a meal, you get a fancy dish. The first thing that you do, or most people end up doing, is clicking a photo of their dish, right? Myself included. So by default, Instagram or Facebook would be, the first hit, right? If you've got a bad dish, that could be disastrous for you as well, right? But triangulating all of the various channels at play is very, very important, right? And how do you have a mix of what channel you want to leverage where, right? And I think all of us have seen, when someone's really very upset with a service, the first platform they go to is Twitter, right? If they have a good fan following, that's a platform that they can make a lot of noise on, and then you'll see invariably the brand reacting, saying, please DM us with your details, and we'll get back to you. Now, that's a perfect example of how they're cross or omni channel, right? So to prevent a flare up, someone might just call up Vaibhav Dalal, and have him pull down his Twitter post, or say thank you, you've reacted to my my issue, right? So it's important that you seamlessly transverse between channels, right? And by that I mean social, voice, email, right? Is very, very important. It'll continue to stay because brands need to have their finger on the pulse of their customers, and to ensure that you provide that superlative service. It's imperative, right? And staying true to the conversation AI bit, right? I think for a client of ours in the Philippines, a very unique story, right? We It's a telecom provider in the Philippines, and the user was just chatting with the bot, and it chatted with the bot and said, please pray for me, I have my exam tomorrow, right? That's the level of engagement that customers are having with bots. We realize that the bot had that because there are various intents that got triggered. We realized that it's a sensitive topic, and we actually had one of our agents call that user to say, we've got a message, all the very best. Our bot has wished you the best, but we would like to personally wish you all the very best for your exam, right? If you look at that, right, it's directly linked to customer sentiment. And if you have a good customer sentiment, you have a good NPS, you have a good NPS, you have a good CLTV, or customer lifetime value, right? So we kind of hope that that customer will continue to be a very loyal customer of our clients, right? And these are where, the little nuances come into play, right? You need to understand what's that end-to-end customer journey that you're stitching, and how well you capitalize on moments of magic, but also how well you work on moments of potential misery, right? I like to look at it in a two half bit, but I think conversation AI is a fantastic platform to bridge the gap that exists in both those scenarios.
Just adding here, Vaibhav,
Yeah.
like Nikhil mentioned, right now, if you see how both Yellow and Techem are coming together, is Techem has that industry knowledge, right? Techem has been in the industry, it has its sets of learning, right? How do you make it conversational is the bridge we gap, right? So that is important. So you have to have industry deep knowledge and have to identify where you can automate, where you cannot, right? And what are the
Yeah.
best journeys that can be brought onto a conversational AI platform, and what needs human intervention, right? I think that combination works excellently well, and we can kind of unearth a lot of value for customers jointly.
And I, just taking cue to that, right? When I mentioned conversation design, in one of my responses, right? It's important that you build, as you call in the technical term, fallback intents, right? We were building a bot for a chips manufacturer, one of the leading brands in the UK, and what we did was the moment someone used the term allergen, allergy, rash, choking, we immediately handed it over to a live agent, right? So it's important that you identify intents and do not frustrate the customer, because that's one aspect that's quite often ignored when brands uh, deploy conversation AI, right? And the final bit is um, you know is not driving the customer to a point of insanity with a bot, and keeping it as fluid as possible. I hope that answers and covers the point, Vaibhav.
Yeah. So I think one of the key things that comes up with all this conversation is how would companies and their customers actually benefit from conversational AI?
Uh, Tejas, yeah, you go ahead.
Uh, uh,
Yeah.
okay, got it. So how companies can benefit, right? One, the first is where conversational AI is available anytime, right? It's available in the language of your choice. It can be made available on the device of your choice, right? So that gives you a huge flexibility when you're interacting with a brand, and brands want that, right? Brands for a very long time depend I mean kind of didn't depend, but moved towards the aggregator to sell their products and services. Now with the direct to consumer D2C strategy, customers want to be more one of the reason why they've adopted is that this strategy is to be more personalized to their customers, where they're able to interact with the customer and understand their needs, right? And that's huge asset to capture and also serve the customers better. So personalization to the highest level, providing elevating customer experience. And then third point, yes, the cost, right? There's a drastic reduction in cost and efficiency that is brought into the contact center. So these are very high level pointers that I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
If I just may add to what Tejas mentioned, right? He ticked all the buttons right on it. But a very important bit that's often ignored, when it comes to conversation AI and I'll use the example of WhatsApp, right? And I'm pretty sure all of us on this call will agree, right? WhatsApp is an always on channel. There's a bit of revenue generation as well that you can do, right? Coming back to your customer lifetime value. Unlike a phone channel, right? If you interact with your brand of choice, just talk about ABC Telecom, right? I'm just using an example. The moment you disconnect the call, that's where the brand ends, right? But if you're interacting with ABC Telecom on WhatsApp, they have an always on channel, because the moment you opt into WhatsApp, they can send you promos, they can send you new offers and so on and so forth, right? So for example, if they have a new plan, they have a new bundle, the flip side is one, reducing cost to serve, but on the other hand, it's also enhancing revenue generation. So very very important bit, and the potential. And I think as we continue, I think there's a question in the chat which we'll come to shortly. But
Yeah.
leveraging customer insights. Example, I know Tejas prefers a specific brand of running shoes. As an e-commerce platform, I can go ahead and say, I know you've purchased a pair of sneakers, track pants, and a sweatshirt from this brand. There's this new perfume or this new watch, right? So there's always opportunities to upsell, cross-sell with Conversation AI because there is so much insights. And there are a couple of hero metrics as we move into Conversation AI, right? Example, what is your bot containment rate? Right, and that's going to be of utmost importance to brands as they full-fledgedly embark on their journey with Conversation AI.
Thank you, Nikhil. So, just asking something which has come from the audience. How would a traditional utility company, benefit from conversational AI, especially in case like where it is India, where processes are still, I think anarchic would be a right word, old, or you may have legacy systems. So, what's your view on that?
I'll let Tejas take this one. He has a couple of clients, and he'll be best to answer that.
Thank you, Nikhil. Yeah, so Vaibhav, I mean, we are seeing a huge uptake, right? We do service some of the largest energy utilities organizations in India. So again, coming to the point, if you imagine in a traditional manner, if you had to reach out to your utilities provider and say there is a outage, or say you want to change your address, or you want to dispute about your bills, it was a nightmare, right? It was pretty much impossible to reach because again, I mean, not cutting out slack for utility companies also, right? Most of their investment goes towards the front line, keeping the energy lines efficient, changing lines and upgrading those lines. So contact center in terms is a cost center. They can only invest so much. So there, a virtual assistant or a chatbot is a fantastic fix, right? Because at the one third the cost of what you're servicing a customer over phone, you can do that on a bot. And the bot again is available 24/7. And imagine on a WhatsApp, you can share your location where there is you see an incident with your power line, and in case if you have say incorrect bill, you can take a photograph and just attach it on your WhatsApp and send that across, right? So that brings immense efficiency in resolving your issues, right? And it reduces your repeat calls drastically. It is available when you need to, and also you can converse in the language that you prefer, right? So you put the bot say in somewhere in Kerala, say in Gujarat. You can just imagine have one deployment supporting multi-language. So we see a huge uptake there. In fact, some of our utility customers today, we are able to deflect about upwards of 47 to 50% of those tickets to the bot today.
And there's one more. So with analytics under consideration, what kind of feasibility do we get on as far as speech analytics is concerned to have a dashboard for identifying what is it the customers really want? I mean, considering that there are so many interactions that happen in a day.
So, Vaibhav, right, to that point, I keep telling clients this, right, that when you embark on your conversation AI journey, it's a constantly evolving journey that they need to be prepared for, right? As I said at the very beginning, if the attitude is that you will build a conversation AI, asset, and life is going to be hunky dory, it's far from the truth, right? Because to I think it's Hiren's question is you constantly need to monitor the bot, right? I use the term called bot containment rate, right? And how do we drive bot containment rate is the number of interactions the bot gets, then and compared to the number of bot intents the bot fulfills, right? You got to constantly analyze the bot performance and also identify what was not being able to be managed by the bot. You also need to check what is bot to live agent deflection, because that will then give you insights as to what are the new intents you need to program the bot for, right? So there are multiple things that get into analytics, right? Analytics on two fronts. One, intents, Two is utterances, right? There may be while there's AI and ML built onto all platforms, right? But Tejas would have a very different way of asking for a refund as compared to Nikhil Pereira, the way I would, right? So utterances and all of that is very, very important. You need to constantly monitor, measure, and enhance any conversational AI asset, right? And the platform will help you do that, but it also requires to what Tejas mentioned, right? The domain expertise and the platform expertise, which I will conclude. My last comment is what TechM and Yellow.ai bring to our clients. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Vaibhav.
Yeah, and I think in the interest of time, as coming almost to the end of the session, we are looking at concluding this now. Justine, over to you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Vaibhav, Nikhil, and Tejas for sharing insightful information around chatbots, CX, and how automation can give a great change to the entire industry. Thanks, everyone, for attending the session. Hope you had a great time listening to the experts all together. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
all.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thanks, Nikhil.